Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is James and I just got out of seeing Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. This was one of my most anticipated movies of the year. I think that this is maybe the best sub-franchise in the MCU, out of the Captain America, Thor, Iron Man, Guardians, stuff like that. I would argue this is maybe the best alongside with Captain America, this franchise. And so I've been very excited about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So last night I was able to go and check it out, and I gotta tell you, I had a great time with this film. This is a incredibly satisfying film on almost every level with how they end the characters and the arcs. And I think it reframes the entire meaning of this trilogy. So Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 follows the story of Rocket and the Guardians as they essentially are trying to stop the High Evolutionary, who we come to learn as the creator of Rocket and the one who made him Rocket who he is, made him smart, made him this machinist essentially, and trying to go after him for an unknown reason for the first bit of the film. So there's the plot. I was really excited for this film, and so let's get started with the review. Starting off with the positives, this film is incredibly satisfying, especially with how they close out all the arcs. This film begins with a really kind of odd tone with the music choice that's used, but if you think about it more, it makes sense, the music choice, because it makes sense why that choice is kind of there. It makes sense that what they're feeling, and I think that that's really well done. All of our characters get an arc closed out for them. They all go off on a high note. No one feels like they are just a departure from their characters. They all feel like that they make sense. I think that all these characters, rewatching 1, 2, holiday special, and then 3, it really reframes your entire perception of this trilogy, where we thought that Peter Quill was the main character of this story. And in this film, we realized that no, all along it was Rocket. Rocket was the main character of this story. And I think they did that in a very profound way. Tying into that, this movie is all about Rocket. This is Rocket's origin story. This might as well be called Rocket's movie. He's the standout of the film, and while he's not in it as adult version in it as much, he's got a massive presence in this film, where throughout the film we see flashbacks to what his childhood was like, or lack of a childhood, and how he met Lila, and who is just a great character, and the true tragedy of this character, where you look back at all the films that he's been in, all the lines in Avengers Endgame where he's talking about, I've lost people too, when he's talking about Thor in 2013 Asgard. He's like, I've lost people too, I need these people. But he's not really willing to admit how much they mean to him because of what his childhood was like. And then all the way back in 2014 when he's in the bar and he's drunk and he goes off on this rant, essentially saying, you have no idea what it was like to get torn apart over and over again and put back together. And it all pays off in this film because this is Rocket's story, and it's done so well, and it's truly horrific. I mean, there's some moments in this film that I'm kind of surprised they got a PG-13 rating. I mean, there's gore, there's blood, there's animal torture. And even the first time we hear Rocket speak in these flashbacks, it just kind of makes you want to cry because of what happens, and just it's horrific, but it's done so beautifully at the same time. All the cast is also great. Nebula, Peter Quill, Gamora. Obviously, Gamora isn't the same Gamora that we know, but all of Drax, Mantis, Kraglin, even characters like Cosmo, all of them are great. And so like, all of them, including apart from Rocket as well, follow up on things that were set up in the original, where we get a new perception on Drax, we get kind of a new perception on Nebula of how she was one of the only Guardians left after the Infinity War, her and Rocket, and so you kind of see how she's kind of changed, and she's kind of grown to care for Rocket more than anyone, really, where she's a real member. She's not just like a reluctant member of the Guardians, like, I'll be with you because I want to survive. No, she's there because she wants to help, and because this is her chosen family now. All of the characters, then Drax and Mantis, I think their kind of duo here is much better in this film than Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. That was one of my issues with that film, even though I do really like it. And they're both great in this. They've got some great chemistry. And overall, all the characters, they follow up with things that were set up when they were first introduced in a great way. Another thing that I can praise this movie for is that it actually has balls to do stuff that most comic book movies wouldn't. This is not a movie that I don't know if parents are going to be happy with taking their little ones to. There's some shots and some scenes in here that if you're especially an animal lover, you're not going to like this movie at all. One of my favorite reviews that I've read was someone did a review and I think the title of it was James Gunn, don't quote me on this, James Gunn presents 150 minutes of animal torture. And that got me kind of laughing. But anyways, it's dark. I mean, and that's what I kind of liked about it, was this movie, because it shows how despicable these villains are and what they're doing, which we'll get to later. It makes you kind of gross, but at the same time, it has a great payoff in the end. And it's something that there aren't too many comic book movies that will go there. There aren't too many movies that will go there, where I'm not saying it shows them ripping Rocket apart and putting them back together, but it implies a lot of stuff. And as I mentioned earlier, the first words that he says are quite painful. Also, the comedy here is great. There's a lot of really funny moments. James Gunn has some great humor in mind. I've fallen in love with James Gunn at Suicide Squad, Slither, The Peacemaker, and obviously the Guardians movies. Everything he's done, apart from Super, wasn't crazy on that one, I've loved, or at least really, really liked. I mean, this movie is great with the humor. It's got some great visual gags that's funny, and obviously it's got some humor that I'm going to keep going back to this, that pays off jokes from the beginning. Like, there's certain raccoon jokes in here that are quite funny. And I think that is one of the things that's done very well. And the final positive that I can give for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is that this film is incredibly satisfying. It's an incredibly satisfying conclusion to this set of Guardians. Now, that is something that we don't get to say very often. When you have a finale event, it's usually a 50-50 coin toss. Usually it's either it's going to be one of the best in the franchise, or it's going to be one of the biggest disappointments. And the fact that James Gunn was able to pull it off before going over to DC I have the utmost respect for him. And this film reframes everything that we've seen so far and puts it into different perspective. And that is the biggest amount of praise I can give this film, of actually promising us and actually giving us a satisfying conclusion and a satisfying movie experience, when it feels like so many times nowadays when we go to see a comic book movie, they promise us that we're going to see something satisfying, and it's never satisfying. Ant-Man, Shazam, even movies like Thor: Love and Thunder. A lot of people, not me, would say Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. And so it's so great to see a film that is so satisfying, and these characters deserve it. Moving on to the mixed aspects of the film, the main one is the villains. I think that both of them are good for what they were given, but I don't think that either of them were top tier villains. First off, I'll start off with Adam Warlock. I really like Will Poulter, and I like that he's branching out and doing more stuff apart from We're the Millers, and Midsommar and The Death Cure. But his character didn't do much. When he was first introduced, I was like, oh, shit. I mean, we're going there. Okay, like, this guy's powerful. And then later, he kind of just showed up less and less and less. And so I kind of like what parts he was given. Like, and I'm really excited to see him more in the future of the MCU and where his character goes in the future. But at the same, and he is somewhat necessary towards the end, kind of. But even then, I think if you take his character out, he doesn't really add anything to the movie. So I didn't hate him like a lot of people did, but I wasn't crazy about him. And then the other villain, of course, was the High Evolutionary. This seems to be like a main topic of conversation. I think there's a lot of really great themes in there, woven in there with the High Evolutionary and his goal of creating the perfect society and creating, like, involving God and creation and like higher up stuff. Like, I think there's a lot of interesting stuff in there. And I think he played it well for what he was given. I just don't think he was given the right stuff. I mean, towards the last half of the film, he's just screaming a lot and shouting. And when that doesn't always work for a villain, and so when you do that, it kind of throws you off a bit, and he's kind of just a bit kooky towards the end. But at the same time, this is one of those villains that you just love to hate, where he's so despicable. This might be the most despicable villain in the entire MCU, where you just cannot wait to see him get killed. And that sounds dark, but when you watch this movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. And so it's a little frustrating that he believes in his cause. They don't try to make you sympathize with him at all. So it's a little frustrating that he's a little kooky and weird, but at the same time, he's very good at being despicable and very good at making you hate him. And the other mixed element was the music. I did think that the music was good in here. There were 3 songs that I thought were really great. There was Creep at the beginning. I'm a creep. Yeah, that one. It's real. I think it's used well. And then there's a song that's No Sleep Till Brooklyn, and that is the start that kicks off the third act, and I think that song is used really well. And then there's one song, the song at the end, I think is one of the best uses of any of the songs in the MCU. And in The Guardians, where it has a lot of emotion to it and it gets you feeling stuff. And I was crying in the theater, but at the same time, it kind of feels little like all the others, they don't feel like they were necessary. Like, if you take them out, it wouldn't destroy the movie, but it doesn't really add anything. Yeah. Like, the song at the end is Dog Days, and then the post-credit scene is Come and Get Your Love, which obviously, great song, but a lot of the songs I just didn't think were necessary. They didn't destroy the mood or anything, I just don't think they were completely necessary. So overall, guys, I love this film. This is in high contention for the best MCU movie since Avengers Endgame, and I genuinely believe that. You know, we've had a couple other really good MCU Phase 4 projects, not Phase 5 projects, that have been really good. Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, Shang-Chi, Spider-Man. This, I would argue, contends with Black Panther, Wakanda Forever for my favorite MCU movie since Endgame. I had an absolute blast with this film, and it's an absolutely fantastic conclusion to this group of the Guardians. So if you are a fan of the MCU or this crew of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and you've been waiting to see how will James Gunn close out this chapter of the Guardians, absolutely go check this film out. There wasn't really anything that I had major issues with. It was mainly just a couple mixed things, but overall it delivered all the emotions that it wanted, had great action, and it closes out this entire trilogy in a brilliant way while reframing everything that we've seen before. So absolutely, please check this thing out in theaters and give it the legs that it deserves to get to that $1 billion mark, and then go out and buy it on every physical media or digital streaming that you can. Go out and buy it. So that was my review on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Please let me know what you thought of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And as always, I'll see you next time. Bye!